This growing season has definitely been challenging here in Florida. So much so that I have reached the point of giving up on my usual methods and just starting over. Let me show you what I mean. Normally in Florida, you plant early in the spring to get ahead of the heat and pests. But when there's no spring, you immediately encounter plants going to seed and pest pressure. I countered the heat by adding plenty of leaf mulch to help lower ground temperature and hold in water. To provide the water, I set up a 5-tank rain harvest system that allowed me to give the plants water even on the hottest, driest days. The pest pressure from the heat was another story. I mentioned in an earlier video about the difficulty of getting my loofah plants started. As soon as they came up, grasshoppers would eat them to the point I actually had to put a cover on to at least give them a chance to develop. Even then, only one was able to fully grow. But all those things could not overcome the intense Florida sun that was literally baking my garden. In April alone, we had the most 90 or higher degree days since 2011, and May and June were even worse. So, my next step was to put up a shade cover to at least give the garden a little shelter from the intense sun. Doing all that, I have managed to get some vegetables from the garden, but nothing like in the past around this time, which has brought me to the point of just starting over. Who would have thought that hurricane season would provide a little relief for the garden? We're now getting afternoon rain, which cools off the heat and blocks some of the constant sun. But also helps to create more pests. However, a gardening friend recommended BT to help with the pest, and it does seem to be working. Remember the loofah that was being eaten before it could get started? Well, at least the seeds have come up and have even been able to grow out a little. I replanted some pole beans and they've begun to break through the ground. So the hope is they can finally take off and cover the trellis. I've also gone from indeterminate tomatoes to determinate, and they seem to be doing better. In addition, I've shifted focus to the plants that have survived the heat so far. Plants like peppers, sweet potatoes, collards, cucumbers, and of course peanuts. The peppers at first were growing well, got hit by pests, and are now beginning to come back. I'm doing succession planting with the cucumbers as their life cycle is limited anyway, so it makes sense to start a new round just as the current ones are taking off. I've also set up a trellis for the sweet potatoes that have begun to put out runners. I want them to go up rather than spread out around the garden. The peanuts, too, are doing pretty well. I planted Virginia peanuts, and they've begun to create flowers, which turn into prongs that burrow into the ground to actually produce the peanuts. I've really been surprised by how long the prongs can get. And finally, it has not been all gloom and doom. Back in February, my brother gave me a bluebird house that I put up. I checked it a few times and then forgot about it. Well, a few days ago, he came by and checked it. And to my surprise, I have bluebirds with 5 bluebird eggs. My brother swears by bluebirds because they eat mosquitoes and other insects like the dreaded grasshoppers. And they will return to the nest to lay more eggs once these hatch. So they're good to have around a garden. I'll update the egg progress as the garden restart progresses. See you next time.